Quad Cortex owners, do y'all want a new update? Yeah, why not? In our next update, the Quad Cortex is going to be compatible with plugins. Yeah, that sounds awesome. We promise it's going to be soon, and with the plugins, you might get some amps that aren't available on the Quad Cortex. So I don't use plugins that often. I don't know if I want to buy one. Do I still get those new amp models because I paid a lot for my Quad Cortex? Just like our archetypes, you're going to have to pay for the Amp Suite plugin. So in the past, we used to get amp models in free updates. Will we still be getting those in the future? I don't know, but hey, if you buy a plugin, you get to use a plugin on your computer. But I said I don't really use plugins. Also, we're running a sale right now, so if you want to get a plugin, you better do it soon, otherwise it's going to go back to full price. But the plugins aren't compatible yet? Soon. Why am I excited again? Even sooner.
What's up everyone, it's Goose, and today I actually slept well. Today we're going to be talking about the latest development update from Neural DSP and how I feel like maybe plugin compatibility might change the way that guitar modeler companies monetize their products. Before we move on, if you are a bedroom guitarist and like nerding out about guitar gear like I do, consider hitting like and subscribe. So let's go over this update. Also, count in the comments how many times I say the word update in this video. So the good stuff first, the Fortin Nameless as well as the Soldana SLO 100 have been updated to the X format, which is their plugin compatibility update. However, they also have the features from the newer plugins. And this is great because these are quality of life features that a lot of these older plugins had actually really needed. But what people have really been waiting for is PCOM, or plugin compatibility. A lot of Quad Cortex owners bought the unit for this feature actually, and a lot of people who haven't yet bought a Quad Cortex but do use the plugins want to be able to use their plugins on a modeler. And the marriage of these two seem perfect. You get basically the plugin tones that you really like from Neural DSP wherever you go. It took a long way to get here, but we're finally almost there. Soon. It's still not actually available. Honestly, this is a great update for the people who use those plugins. Plugin users have been wanting those old plugins to have these new features like transpose and whatnot. And listening to the community is a really good thing. And I will always applaud companies that do that. But I started thinking about this from another angle, a scary, dark angle, from the perspective of a Quad Cortex user who doesn't use plugins. Typically with modelers, you get free updates that sometimes include free new amp models. But now that they have the Nameless and the SLO as X models, you start to think, is that it for the free amp updates? Once plugin compatibility does arrive for the Quad Cortex, namely with the Fortin Nameless, that's the first amp suite that doesn't already have an amp model in the Quad Cortex, this is the first time that we're going to have a modeler, like a floor modeler or a rack unit, have a new amp model that requires a purchase. And I'm talking fully featured component modeled amps, not just like a capture. For the avid video gamers out there, this is paid DLC. This is paid downloadable content. When you look at all the other devices, like from Line 6, Fractal, Boss, or whatever, their new amp models always came with free updates. And even some companies like Fractal like to update existing amp models to be even better. And Neural used to do this too. Like they had middle of last year, they had the update that included the Victory Kraken. But that made me think about the two new X models we got, the Fortin Nameless and the SLO 100, because what are they really? There already is a SLO 100 model in the Quad Cortex, so what we're essentially getting is an updated model for an existing amp model, and the Fortin Nameless is not in here in any way, shape, or form, so that is a new amp model. And as a Quad Cortex owner, you don't get either of them unless you pay. So plugin use aside, not talking about like using the plugins in your DAW or anything, the only way to get those amp models on here is to pay for them. And some of you might think this is a stretch. I get it. The amp plugins that you buy from Neural aren't just amp blocks. They're also the cabs, the effects, the presets. But let's flip that around. What if it's just the amp model? What if the amp model itself, not the other stuff that you buy the plugin with? What if the amp model itself were just made available through a free update for someone who bought a $1,700 unit? That seems reasonable, right? At least to me, that seems reasonable. But as it stands, if you're a Quad Cortex owner that doesn't look at plugins at all and you just wanted a more updated Soldano, you're gonna have to fork over the money. And to be honest, now that I'm thinking about it a little bit more, the Soldano amp suite is not a great value in the current market. And having an amp model in both modular form and plugin form kind of actually just reminds me of this or this. If you like browsing captures and that kind of ecosystem of amps, Tonex already has parity between their desktop and their device. You can use plugins on here and put it on a pedal board and have the tones right at your feet. But if you're more into component modeling, like you like having the different knobs and everything readily available, then this basically is also that, because Helix Native is available on your PC. Helix Native is the plugin version of the flagship Helix. And even though it retails for $400, which is a lot, if you have an HX Stomp already, they actually discount you down to $100. And if you do their survey, they give you another 25% off. So you get all of Helix basically in your DAW, in your plugin form for $75. That's less than the price of a single plugin from Neural before sales. And some might say, well, Neural sounds better. That's what you're paying for. Folks who are familiar with my channel, I've done a lot of comparisons between the exact same amp models between these modular units, and that statement doesn't hold true. Especially amps like the dual rectifier, the Quad Cortex version is just not very good. However, regardless of all that, Neural is still the hot name in the game right now. Hot name in the game. They're the leader in the industry, and you can see that with all the plugins that have come out with other companies like Mixwave and even Line 6 that basically emulate the style of Neural plugins. And that actually leads me to the last thing I wanted to mention, is that if the PCOM, the way that they're going to be releasing amp models on this in the future, i.e. through paid plugins, and then you need to have bought the plugins to use it on here, that might roll over to the other companies. When corporations see that another company is making a lot of money doing something, what do? They try to emulate it. Especially when we're talking about digital technology. Like, how many companies have tried to make that Apple ecosystem? Because Apple makes a lot of money, and so these other companies also want to make a lot of money. And so in my opinion, this actually might be the future, where we end up paying for things that used to be free in updates. And I get it, when you buy a Neural plugin, you're not just buying the amp model, you're buying the cabs, you're buying the effects, you're buying the presets. I get it, there's a lot more in that package. But do you think Neural is actually going to put an amp model on here for free now, if they know that they can charge people for it? Because honestly, I wouldn't be surprised in our future if other amp modelers start looking at that and going, we should gate our amp models, our new amp models for our modelers via plugins. And maybe that's the price we have to pay for convenience between going from the device to your desktop. Personally, I just hope that Neural considers giving discounts to owners of the Quad Cortex in the same way that Line 6 gives discounts to people who own Line 6 products to the Helix Native. Because you're paying $1,700 for this, and it's meant to be able to do it all. But yeah, let me know in the comments down below how you feel about potentially having to buy amp models in the future for the Quad Cortex rather than getting them in free updates like you used to. But yeah, that's gonna do it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, even though it had kind of a grim conclusion. And I will catch y'all in the next one. Later.